almost there. No way. What is this? You're tuned in to the Eyes Open podcast, where secrets aren't safe and we see it all.
Be completely honest with you, I didn't ever plan on making this particular episode. This kind of just came about, and I'll explain to you why. But first off, I want to explain that this is probably the most easiest, but the most hardest episode to make. And I know that sounds, kind of crazy. Doesn't make sense. Like how could an episode be the most easiest episode to make, but the most hardest episode to make? And I'll tell you why. It's the most easiest because it's what I've lived. It's what I went through. So there's no real researching. There's nothing that I have to reflect on because I've lived it. But it's the hardest because you have to not only relive those moments, but you have to talk about certain things that you hope you'd probably never have to talk about again. Because if you've been through these types of situations, for me at least, it's almost taxing. All right, it definitely taxes you. You feel a little more drained after every time you have to, go through it. Especially being that I've never actually went through it. I've never actually told the whole story from beginning to right now. I've from the beginning of my life leading all the way up to where I'm at right now. I've never told that story. So in a sense, even telling my whole story to what got me right here, right now, is one big near-death experience. It's really what it is. And when I tell you guys, you'll understand what I mean. But I had somebody reach out that was talking in the comments about a near-death experience they had, and we were talking about finding Christ, and it came to me. I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time to do that episode and explain what I have went through my whole life. And it was to a point where I felt like I was cursed, man. I mean, so much had happened to me at even such a young age that I was like, man, is there like a dark black cloud following me or something? Because I had went through so much. It wasn't even trauma. It was just so much things were always happening to me. I mean, that's why I got this scar on my forehead. I remember, if you look closely when I do reels, from the scar on my forehead to the scars I have over here, it's from a lot of different stuff I've been through in my life. And I remember it was the funniest thing is I had somebody say in comments, they're like, "Oh, does he's got the Neuralink, he's got the chip in his head, he's got the scar in his head." But no, the scars on my head represent a lot of stuff I've been through. I mean, from the backs of my head to, if you went and looked around on my head, you'll see a lot of scars. If you look around on me in general, you'll see a lot of scars. It's just what I've been through. But in order for you guys to understand, I mean, maybe start like almost in a movie, they start from the end and then they go to the beginning, or they start from the beginning and go to the end. I mean, it just depends on how you tell the story. But I would say to tell the story effectively and to make you guys understand, the story has a happy ending thus far. It does. And I would say there's a reason now why it makes sense, because most of what I've been through, most people shouldn't have survived. I shouldn't have survived a lot of it. I really shouldn't have. And by the grace of God, I did. And a lot of it, even though he saved me, I went right back to being stupid a lot of times in my life, and you know, to this day I regret it. But I know he forgives me because his grace is sufficient. It is. And that's why I try to show, I've been the type of person where my wife gets mad or people get mad at me like, oh man, you give, you know, people too many chances. And it's because God's given me too many chances. Okay. I remember there was a friend of mine that I thought was a good friend of mine, and he screwed up. He did something that was kind of foul, but it was, you know, I won't get into details, but, it wasn't nothing that I felt, you know, it was bad, but it wasn't too bad. So I was like, you know what, I'll forgive you. But then what happened? Did something even worse to me behind my back after that. So when we think about that, we just continue to hurt God that way. So us as human beings, we're imperfect, but bottom line is I don't deserve the grace that God has given me, because the amount of near-death experiences I've been through would shock most people. And honestly, I don't even think, you know, I'll remember all of them to be able to tell you all of them. I mean, I really couldn't. This episode would be 2 hours long if I told you. But I would tell you it starts with, and if my mom ever watches this episode, or people that have known me since I was a little child, they would agree that I've been through an insane amount of near-death experiences, almost to where it's like, you know, I almost wonder, like, why me? Why do I keep going through this stuff? But being where I'm at now and preaching God's word and putting God's word out there, I'm like, well, you know what? Sometimes God picks the people that are really scraping the bottom of the barrel sometimes. He does. He really does. Because back when I was that type of person, even when I was younger, I mean, it wasn't even when I was an older type of person, to be honest with you. Because people are like, oh man, I was a piece of shit when I was an older person. And no, I was a bad little shit when I was a little kid. I ain't gonna lie. I was a bad little shit. But I'll give you an example of like one of the first times that this happened. So from what I'm told, because I was only 2 years old, I obviously don't remember it, but most of the people in my family remember it. My mom, I was supposed to be out with my brother, and he was supposed to be watching me and supposed to have the pool gate locked to our in-ground pool at our house. And I guess, I don't know the whole details, but I know the fact of what it was I got in the pool, fell in the pool, and my mom was inside washing dishes, and she got this, and I think this is where I get this weird discernment, like something's wrong, something's not right. She got this feeling that something wasn't right, like a cold feeling over her. So she rushed out of the house and found me floating in the pool. Now, my mom can't swim, so if she would have jumped in, she would have died herself. So she's screaming and trying to fish me out of the pool when I'm 2 years old. Now, here's the twist of the story. My dad and my brother Daryl were home that day. They were only home that day because they were burying my dog, Taurus, which somehow died out of nowhere. Like they thought the neighbor poisoned them. They said they don't know what happened, but they were back. Like they had acres on this land, at least, I guess a couple, 2, 3, 4 acres, whatever. But they were way back on the acreage burying the dog, and they heard my mom screaming. So they come running up, jumped, dove in the pool, got me out of the pool, and I guess I was like blue in the face, lips purple, everything, whatever. And my dad threw me over his back and was patting on me, and the water came out of me. So luckily I didn't die. But that was my first near-death experience. And it seemed like ever since then, it had followed me my whole life. Because like I said, I could sit here all day and tell you the near-death experiences I've had. For example, the next one up I could remember after that, I was maybe, now people don't remember this, a lot of people, but I do. We used to go ride bikes all over the city when we were like 8 years old. We were young kids, man, and we'd be out riding bikes. We'd leave early. Nobody had cell phones. We'd come back before the street lights went out, and you'd be driving by somebody in the city on your bike, and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" And they'd wave at you. Everybody knew everybody, so your parents could almost call around the city and know where you've been at or if somebody had seen you. So, and it's just wild because when you think about it nowadays, you can't do that. You really can't. But we used to just go out for the day. It was great. My daily routine was I'd go to Blockbuster, I'd go get some movies, I'd go run to Taco Bell, I'd get some food, and then I would ride home with my sister on bikes. Now there was a hill that we had to come down to get back to our house. And it was like 5 streets down, and then we'd stop at the stop sign on this hill. So we're on our way back, got my movies, got everything ready to go home. And I come down this hill, and we stop at the stop sign. Now there's a car that looked like it stopped at the stop sign. So what happens is I go to go, the car goes to go, and I go boom, hit this car, and I'm like, and mind you, I'm like 8 years old. I hit this car with my bike, go flying, smash through the windshield, flip over the car, end up in the street, and I'm just laying there. And I still remember, like, I felt like I was like, am I dead? Like, I almost thought I was dead. And when I woke up, like, there was, I kind of got knocked out for a second, but didn't really. Because my sister was standing there trying to wake me up. So it was almost like I lost consciousness, but I didn't. But I'll never forget, I had pieces of glass, like, in my elbows. There was just chunked in my elbows. And what was crazy is the ambulance came, cleaned me up a little bit. They said, "Do you want to go to the hospital?" And I was terrified of my mom finding out at what had happened. So I was like, no, I'm good. So they wrapped me up and sent me home. And my mom, when I got home, she says, "What the hell happened to you?" And I was like, I gotta tell her what happened because I got into a lot of fights back then. I could have made something up, but I was like, nah, I gotta tell her what happened. So I told her the whole story, and she flipped. And she wasn't mad at me; she was mad at the situation. Like, you could have internal bleeding or something wrong with you, and we would never know, and you could die. Like, you can't just go to sleep. So she took me to the hospital, made sure everything was okay with me, got me cleaned up and bandaged up right. And she pitched a bitch, man. She flipped on she found out who the ambulance people were. Like, she really flipped out. Now that I look back at it, it's all understandable. But that was the next one I went through. I should have probably, especially speeding off that guy's trunk, flying through windshields. I mean, we're like doing freaking action star shit at 8 years old. Like, that scared the crap out of me, that one. But it just seemed like, and then the things just kept happening, because years later, when I was about maybe 12, and like I said, there's more than I can count on both hands. It's just the big ones I can remember. 2 4-wheeler accidents. One of them was, we were driving down my buddy's pasture, and I was probably maybe, trying to think, about 12 or 13, and we're flying down his pasture, and I still remember it. That's back when I had a Polaris Trailblazer, just straight up, for the people that know those old yellow Trailblazers. I had a Polaris Trailblazer automatic, and I'm flying down this pasture. And like, pastures, some of them have a big wooden posts. So I'm flying down this pasture, and I just slightly clipped this pole and went like that, flew like that. And my buddy who looked behind and seen it, the four-wheeler flipped on me so many times, like I couldn't even believe that I didn't break anything. And I just laid there, kind of didn't want to move because I thought I broke my neck or something. And my buddy was like, "Oh my gosh, he's dead." And he came over and he's like, hey, you all right? You all right? And I'm just kind of came to, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm fine. And that was pretty wild. That one was pretty wild. But it wasn't until I went through the one that happened, the second four-wheeler accident, like a year or so later. I was trying to think, because I know how old my sister was. I was like 14 or 15. So what had happened was, my sister's boyfriend, we used to all go riding four-wheelers on the streets. Like me and all the people I knew, we all lived out in the middle of nowhere, so we'd all go four-wheeling as kids on the streets, running through farmers' yards, doing all types of crazy stuff. So my sister's boyfriend was riding with everybody because he didn't have his own four-wheeler. So he was trying to hop on the back of my four-wheeler, and I was like, man, I don't know why. I got this bad feeling like that you should not get on the back of my four-wheeler. And I shit you not, like, he thought I just didn't want him on the back of my four-wheeler, but I was like, no. I was like, I got a bad feeling, dude. You should not ride on the back of my four-wheeler. And this was, I think at the time I had a Honda Recon. Yeah, I think it was a Honda Recon. And he was like, no, man, come on, let me ride with you. And there's already like 4 or 5 four-wheelers. So I'm like, dude, just jump on somebody else's. So I try to take off without him. He jumps on the back of the four-wheeler, and I'm flying down the road, and I'm like, man, what are you doing? And I'm yelling at him while I'm driving. And I knew there was a turn coming up, like a real sharp turn in the road. And I go to stop or slow down so I could make the turn, not realizing that his weight on the back, that's why they even show on the four-wheelers the symbol no two riders on especially certain four-wheelers, certain weights. The front wheels were slightly off the ground enough to where I couldn't brake. So I should have remembered, but I was in such freak out mode, I should have hit that right foot brake and I could have stopped the four-wheeler. But everything happened so fast and I was going pretty quick that I couldn't stop. So we went straight head on, okay, into a ditch that was like, you're coming into a ditch that's easily this high. I mean, as high as this desk is, a little bit higher. I hit that ditch, okay, and this was a time that I've never seen my life flash before my eyes, but that time I did. That time I actually did. I'll never forget it. I hit this ditch going about 40-something miles an hour, flew, it felt like, and the person who had seen it, some old woman, came out to make sure we were all right. I flew, it had to be 20 feet in the air, was flying, flipping in the air. He got thrown from my four-wheeler, like far too, man. And this was in a cornfield. So we hit a ditch, and this was right before a cornfield that had just been harvested. So it was pretty barren. So I hit it, flew like 20 feet in the air spinning. He got thrown from it. And then, I shit you not, the four-wheeler landed on me, and then I rolled right back up on top like this, like straight back up. Now, it was so intense and so crazy. Like, I seen everything in my life flash before my eyes. I thought I was dead. I was so freaked out when I landed straight up on that four-wheeler that I felt like if I moved my head, I was so freaked out. Like, my adrenaline must have been pumping so hard. I felt if I moved my head, like it was going to like shift off of my body. and then I was going to be like dead. So I was so freaked out, I didn't move for a second, but I'm over there, and then all of a sudden I start touching my body. I'm like, oh shit, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. Like, and then I realized I was okay, and then after I realized I was okay, I looked over at my sister's boyfriend who was way off in the field. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta make sure he's okay. So I ran over there. He's screaming, man, screaming. So I'm like, I know there's something wrong. So he had his hand on his leg. He had like a big boots on. His leg shifted back in his boot. That's how I'll never forget that. And I got the chills when I'd seen that. His leg shifted back in his boot. Like it wasn't attached to his foot. I'll never forget that. He had to get life flighted out of that field, and I literally walked away without a scratch. I could not believe it. Like, I literally could not believe it. I was like, man, tomorrow I'm going to wake up with like bad injuries or something bad's going to, happen. And luckily, he had to get pins put in his foot and his leg, and it was a big mess he had to go through. But he even knew I warned him. I said, look, and everybody was there as witnesses. I was like, dude, I warned you not to ride in the back of my four-wheeler. I warned you a ton of times. And it was just a horrible set of circumstances we went through. But I was completely shocked again, walked away without a scratch. Like, made no sense to me. And then, again, I could name 100 times this has happened. I mean, the amount of car accidents, I'm talking head-on collisions. A few years ago, I was in a straight up head-on collision with a girl I was doing, and I had my family in the car with me. I was doing 50 miles an hour going down a 2-lane highway, and she jumped out in between these cars because I guess 2 cars stopped. She jumped out and didn't realize, and I'm driving, a Dodge Ram, 18 Dodge Ram, crew cab. And she jumps out, and she's in a Lexus or something, and she tried to curve, but I went boom and pretty much hit her dead on, threw her car way off into the trees, snapped my axle like it was butter, threw my tire off, like skidded all the way down into the freaking into the ditch. And I'll never forget when I got out of the car, that was one of the big moments that hit me hard, was because my family was involved. And I'll never forget, like, everything, if people have been in these types of situations, everything moved in real slow motion. And then it was weird. It was almost like a ringing in your ears. Everything kind of went deaf. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom. And then I just popped back to, like, my wife was saying something to me, and it's like everything just kind of popped back into place. And I was like, because I kind of was just out of it for a minute. But I mean, from that to cars smashing right on my end, my wife's car before that, when we first had met, her 99 Civic got T-boned. We got thrown all around an intersection. I mean, I've been in so many car accidents and should have been fatal accidents, and I'm still here, that it amazes me, to be honest with you. Like, I can't even believe that I've survived all these. And to know where I'm at right now, the fact that I run a podcast that glorifies God when I can, I try to put him at the center of everything. It makes sense now to me. I'm like, maybe this is what I'm meant to do. Maybe this is my purpose. I'm meant to get his word out to people, to let people know that he loves you more than you could ever understand. Because I'm telling you, I know God was with me in every single one of those accidents. He had to have been. Because you could ask anybody that's witnessed any of these accidents. They says, man, it's not just walking away unscathed. Like I said, like, there's accidents, like I said, I got scars to show, but a lot of them were unscathed, like not one bone broken, not a bruise, not nothing. I don't even know how it was possible. It like defies logic. But my and near-death experiences are different in that sense, to where most of them didn't involve like horrible bad injuries or whatever. It was almost different. It was like supernatural, to the point I remember I watched a movie, and I know I don't believe in stuff like this, obviously, but I watched a movie where it was like the people actually died, but they went on living their lives, and they thought they didn't die, but it was actually that accident they were in that they died in, and they really were still living their life. So it's like I don't know what the movie was. There's a funny movie I watched like that, but the point of what I'm saying is, when you have a purpose and you live for God, I really believe that He protects you when He calls you for a certain purpose. And I believe I've been called for a certain purpose. And I believe that purpose is only partially being shown right now. And once that light fully shines for my purpose for God, I believe it's going to be amazing. And I believe it's going to be shown sooner than later, because we are living in very, very dark times. And, I would love to hear other people's, near-death experience stories. Either send me a message, leave it in the comments. I would love to hear about them, because that's where we find a lot of faith sometimes, is in these types of situations. They change us. They really do. They change us. They shape us. They mold us into the people we are now, and they strengthen our faith. At least that's what it did for me. And it's really amazing, when you've experienced it.